Ooh, another day, another dollar. Let's get ready. You ready, Sage?
I'm ready, but Josh, we don't have to be on Zoom anymore.
Oh my goodness. You're taller than I expected, I gotta be honest.
And you? Well, OwlSports Update is live and it starts right now.
No more mute buttons, no more webcams. This anchor duo is finally off that spring semester Zoom and now live and in person for the first time in our Temple careers.
This time around, we have more than just basketball to talk about. In case you forgot, I'm Sage Hurley and he's Josh Safran, and we've moved from Courts in Session to our flagship show, OwlSports Update. And today, we'll start off with some football.
Before we look back at Temple's first win of the 2021 campaign, we look ahead to Saturday's matchup against the Boston College Golden Eagles. Boston College comes into this game sporting a 2-0 record, those two wins coming against Colgate and UMass. For Temple, the big question continues to be at quarterback. Freshman Justin Lynch played well in place of injured starter DeJuan Mathis, which already has Coach Carey answering questions about his man behind center.
You always like to have one quarterback. I've said that even when I've played two, and I will certainly cross that bridge when we come to it.
You can play a whole game with like two running backs, three running backs, but the thing I like about our group is that we feed off each other.
I said the same thing when we back up in SUNY. I mean, all we need is 100 yards to play football, so it doesn't really matter where we're at. We're going to put the ball down and play. I know that. Coming in this week, we got to be on our toes, and we're gonna be prepared this week.
The Owls are finally home at the Link this weekend for a noon kickoff, and the gates will be open to fans. We haven't seen that since 2019 thanks to COVID. And if you can't make it, stick with us for live updates throughout the day on all things social media at OwlSports Update.
Let's go back to last Saturday at Akron, where the Zips were hot early on after scoring a touchdown on their first drive. Cato Nelson stepping in the pocket, finding his guy Tony Grimes Jr. wide open, not a defender within 10 yards. The Owls needed an answer, and boy, did they get it. A jet sweep to Randall Jones. And Jones takes it 70 yards to the house, and Jones's work was far from over on the day. Later on in the second quarter now, Manny Walker leaps up. Look at what I found. Walker tries to disrupt the screen pass and winds up with a pick six. After the game, Walker said he didn't even try to catch the ball. It was all instinct. Start of the second half now, the true freshman Lynch to the graduate again. Jones finished this game with a career-high 170 yards to go along with 2 touchdowns. Temple comes back and takes this one 45-24. Temple started its 2021 season losing 61-14 to Rutgers, the most lopsided loss dating back to 2006. And that year, Temple finished with a 1-10 record. In week 2, the Owls quickly found themselves down 14-0 against an Akron team who had amassed just 1 win in the past 2 seasons. To try and prevent history from repeating itself, Temple relied on an unlikely hero. The Owls didn't have much time to get used to Georgia transfer DeJuan Mathis behind center. With Mathis in a boot, it was true freshman Justin Lynch who got the start Saturday against Akron. Following a rough start to his collegiate career, Lynch flipped a 70-yard touch pass to Randall Jones, which was the beginning of a 45-3 run in Temple's first win of the season.
That's Randall Jones. He's taking it to the house.
We needed a spark, you know. I felt like we started off slow as a team, and I got my team going. I said we needed a spark, so I had to be the one that created that spark, and we kept it going.
Any score we needed on that drive, whether it was one player, whether it was 15, we were down 14-0. We needed a score. Certainly got it.
Lynch played with poise, throwing 19 completions on 23 attempts to the tune of 245 yards and 2 touchdowns. A poised pass down from Justin's older brother and high school coach, Jordan Lynch, who finished 3rd in Heisman voting in 2013 while playing under Coach Carey at Northern Illinois.
Just text throughout the week, just be confident. He didn't want to get in my head too much, just let me be me. Just a few texts be good, I'll find out that be you. So high school, it's pretty similar, like you said. I had a good grasp on the offense coming in.
Justin also used his legs, rushing for 34 yards and a touchdown, but he still has a long way to go if he wants to catch Big Brother, who up until 2019 held the NCAA single-season quarterback rushing record with 1,920 yards.
They both can run, right? They both have good ability that way, and that's an element certainly that we want in our offense and have in our offense.
If you put last year's COVID madness aside, Lynch's start against Akron marks the first time a true freshman started a game at quarterback for the Owls since P.J. Walker got the start against Cincinnati in 2013.
Now to soccer, where it's safe to say the Owls have had a very tough week in front of a packed house against Villanova. A set piece in the 30th minute from Spencer Patton finds the foot of Alex Marin in the box for a goal, the first of his collegiate career. In the second half now, Nova's Balthy Saunders curves one into the side of the net, just out of Goronski's reach to knock it up at 1. Now in overtime, Temples commits a foul in the box, the game on the boot of Nova's Liam McKinnon, and he does not hold back. McKinnon powers the ball off of Goronski's fingertips for the game winner. Nova wins this chippy affair by a 2-1 score. That double overtime loss was just the beginning of the bad. After this game, we learned that the Owls not only lost the game, but they lost their all-everything goalie, Owen Goronski, for the rest of the season, thanks to a foot injury. On top of the loss and the injury, the Owls learned of a COVID concern, causing the postponement of their game against the #1 ranked team in the country, Georgetown. That's a lot of bad news for just 1 week of soccer.
Yeah, I mean, it's, is it 2020 or is it 2022 yet? I don't know what it is, but this is part of the business. You deal with this. We know we had to deal with COVID last year, and it's unfortunate. And then obviously, with Owen, that's disappointing for him, disappointing for the team. Next guy will step up and be ready to go, and we'll compete, and we'll figure this thing out. We'll prepare. Obviously, losing the Georgetown game, it's a great opportunity for us to host the #1 team in the country. It doesn't happen very often. So we're disappointed for the players, but ultimately, we can look forward to SMU now and the conference game and getting off to a good start.
So there's Nova, there's the loss of a starting goalie, and a COVID pause. What's next? The Owls are still slated to face the undefeated SMU Mustangs this Saturday in their conference opener. The game will take place on their home turf, the Temple Sports Complex, at 7 p.m., and it will be streamed on ESPN+.
We're up against our first break of the season, but when we come back, women's soccer picks up its first win. We'll update you on the issues crew and rowing are having after Hurricane Ida.
And I'm Inside the Nest beat reporter Emily Cochran. After this break, I'll take a look at the 3 schools leaving the AAC for the Big 12 and what that means for the future of Temple and the American Conference. Stick around.
We're back, but a couple of AAC teams won't be. Inside the Nest reporter Emily Cochran has more on the recent changes to the conference and what we could see in the near future.
Thanks, Sage. Just over a week ago, the Big 12 announced that 4 programs will be added to its conference. It just so happens that 3 out of the 4 schools are current AAC members and strong competitors with our very own Temple Owls. Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF will be leaving the entire conference no later than 2024. The scary part is the Big 12 could potentially have more AAC teams on its radar, such as Memphis and SMU. And unfortunately for the American, there's not many ways to avoid the inevitable. The sad truth is, if the Big 12 decides to add more AAC schools to its conference, the American will likely start to look more like the Sun Belt or CUSA rather than other Power 5 conferences it aspires to be like. Sage and Josh, back to you guys.
Thanks, Emily. The women's soccer team ended its losing drought in a hard-fought 3-0 win over St. Joe's this past Thursday. A strong effort from young players and a young head coach. On the brink of starting conference play, the Owls will look to capitalize on momentum from a big win against a Big Five rival. OwlSports Updates, Cameron Schofield has more.
There's nothing like a local rivalry to wake up a team in need of a win. Temple's shutout over St. Joe's ended the Owls' winless streak at 5, one of the program's worst starts in over a decade.
We've been in for about, 5 or 6 weeks now, and the truth is it's a building process from day one, especially with a big incoming class of new players and young players.
This year, the roster is made up of 29 players, including 10 true freshmen and 8 more in their second year after the shortened COVID season last spring.
You look at our midfield tonight, and both Carly Steinberg and Moa Anderson are young players who played a great shift tonight, and I think really grew into the game. And then you have the experience of Emily Kavanaugh and Haley Gutowski tonight, who were very good and instrumental in the first couple of goals.
Goalkeeper and team captain Cameron Stablen is another seasoned player for the Cherry and White. The junior is leading her team through the fresh season by allowing only 7 goals in just 6 games so far.
We're trying to incorporate a whole new look to the program. I mean, we're under Nick, and that's all new, and we had a COVID year, so definitely had to take a new leadership role.
During last Thursday's game, passes connected, and the Owl defense acted as a brick wall against St. Joseph's efforts, which shows the bond the team has built through their previous 5 weeks and what they hope to carry on going forward.
This is a good way to end our non-conference schedule, right? I think what we'll take a lot of pride in is not just that we create chances, but they were quality chances.
The Owls open up conference play with their next game at University of Memphis. From the Temple Sports Complex, I'm Cameron Schofield, OwlSports Update.
The women may have just snapped their losing streak, but they kick off conference play this Thursday against a Memphis team that only has 1 loss all year in 8 games played. A tough test for the Owls, but not impossible. Catch the women's soccer team Thursday at 7 p.m. live on ESPN+. It was a busy weekend away for most of the Temple teams. Let's recap some of the scores from the games over this past weekend, starting with the volleyball team. The Owls took a bus ride down to Towson for the Tiger Invitational, where they faced off against Norfolk State, Towson, and Lehigh. They started off with a narrow defeat to Norfolk State and got swept by Towson, but were able to salvage the trip with a sweep against Lehigh. The field hockey team won a double overtime thriller against Fairfield Sunday. After 80 scoreless minutes, senior Carrie Lorenz netted the game-winning breakaway goal. We're up against the break.
But when we come back, Temple's rowing and crew teams are left with many questions after Hurricane Ida. Their boathouse was one of many that faced the effects of the worst flooding Philadelphia has seen in a century. Stick with us and we'll have all the details after this. The Temple men's basketball team has a new kid on the block. The Owls signed a 15-year-old Philadelphian named Omar, who's living with sickle cell anemia. Omar met the Owls through Team Impact, an organization that connects children with serious illnesses with college programs.
This is a wonderful day in our program where we get to add a high-quality, high-character individual to our team. We fight for you, and we fight with you. So continue the great work, and welcome to the family, the Temple family. Go Owls. Welcome.
I'm happy to be here. Happy we chose one of the kids chosen to be here. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
2 weeks ago, Hurricane Ida ravaged the East Coast, and Philadelphia did not avoid its path of destruction. Temple's boathouse on the Schuylkill took a beating, leaving the rowing and crew seasons in questions. OwlSports Update's Tanner Gilmartin has more on the story.
Hurricane Ida hit so many in so many different ways. But this is the painful memory Temple rowing and crew have of its destruction, with one of their boats aimlessly floating down the Schuylkill. When the storm passed, the Owls were left with a flooded boathouse, not to mention a boathouse now without 2 boats.
It's definitely a setback, but we've just had to focus on being more technical when we're training indoors on the rowing machines. You know, we're ready to race and we're ready to train no matter, whether we don't have a dock or if we have to use different boats. Guys are ready to step up.
Ida has forced the team to be practicing indoors, which is something much different than what they expected.
Everybody kind of understands that this is nobody's fault. So everyone's just kind of said, okay, well, we can't do anything about it, so we're just going to work hard now and hopefully reap the rewards a little bit later on.
It's just another obstacle in a series of obstacles that pushed Temple off the water thanks to COVID more than a year and a half ago.
We kind of have another year of incoming guys who have to start their Temple journey indoors.
While the game plan for getting new equipment is still up in the air, the Owls continue to practice on land and work with other Philadelphia schools to borrow their equipment to get back onto the Schuylkill. Reporting from Boathouse Row in Philadelphia, I'm Tanner Gilmartin, OwlSports Update.
It's time for your new favorite segment, the Sage and Saffron Spotlight. Try to say that 3 times fast.
Each week, we will highlight a standout team or player for you guys to pay extra attention to based on their performance from the past week. And it's not every week we get to see a record broken, but how about 2 records being broken by 1 player in 1 tournament? I'm talking about Connor McGrath at Golf Week's Fall Challenge in South Carolina. McGrath shot a 203, breaking the previous record by 1 stroke. And that 203 put McGrath at 13 under on the tournament, smashing the last record of 9 under. McGrath's 203 and 6 birdies on the final day of the tournament earned him 2nd place out of 93 golfers.
My guy this week is graduate captain Will Kwenku. He was a defensive force against Akron, and I predict the same for this weekend versus Boston College. His 38-yard scoop and score paired with 2 sacks earned him AAC Defensive Player of the Week honors. Kwenku, who wears the honorable single digit, will look to add to his 11 tackles on the year when the Owls return to the link on Saturday.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us on our first ever show on desk. I'm Josh Saffron. She's Sage Hurley. We'll see you next time.